A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back once again to films I should have talked about years ago. So I've talked a lot about various films correlating to action, science fiction, horror, but I feel like that romantic comedy is something that could be of more usage in the series. Some people might wonder about what my romance life is like, and let me tell you, I might seem single, but I actually have a thing going on known as mutualhood. It's essentially where I have a lot of partners going on. But I feel like that kind of talk is going to clearly distance ourselves from the main topic at hand, which of course is the movie Easy A. Now, this is of course a 2010 film, so I know it's already going to be among the best that the film industry would have had to offer. And it's not just because of how 2010 is just such a perfect year, by many means. But there, of course, will be a lot of other things I'll be able to talk about as I go along with this review. So, first off, let's make it clear here. There's a good amount of sexuality that goes on in Easy A. Sure, it's a PG-13 film, and there might have been a little stigma that got associated with it because of its sexual jokes, as well as persistent usage of some language, mainly foul. But let's remind ourselves, in the more recent times, we have gotten tons of films with R ratings in them, so whether it satisfies people or not, I don't need to go through that kind of debate. The MPAA is, of course, responsible for rating films, not us. Anyways, though, this film follows the likes of Olive Pendergast. Quite a unique name, if you ask me. She is, of course, a high schooler whom spreads certain rumors, not just with her friends, but also on the web, mainly through social media. Because remember, in the 2010s, there was a thing called social media. While it was a unique way to communicate with other people and reconnect with lost ones out there, especially those whom are of distant family or ones we haven't seen in a long, long time, the fact that it's been dead now for years, just as many people had predicted, we probably won't miss it as much as we could have had it improved. But back then, as we know, in 2010, it was practically at its prime, with such websites like Facebook, Twitter, as well as newer sites eventually forming within the next 5 years. But in terms of Pendergast's life, well, she of course seemingly had an uneventful average time in high school before eventually spreading a certain rumor about her virginity being lost. So, as we know, it was a common trait in many people at the time to talk about losing their virginity and how they plan on doing it. Whether it be they would get along with friends and go to a party or something where there would sometimes be alcohol and drugs involved, or where it would be going to visit a club at some sort. There was a number of ways that some people would put it, but among the most common methods of some people losing their virginity is, of course, establishing a friendship and eventually a love relationship with another person they find. And it can happen pretty much anywhere we know. At school, at work, at church, or even in our own neighborhood, as it does sometimes happen as close to home as you could probably imagine. And some people have even gone online as a means to connect with others and hopefully form a bond between them in the way that actually does get them on the path to love and eventual engagement, marriage, and etc. But in terms of Olive's love life, she hadn't exactly gotten very much attention here until this rumor was made. Her virginity being lost apparently caught on, practically like wildfire, and while some friends of hers and even her own family find a lot of interesting things around this, especially with her best friend, Marianne, played by Amanda Bynes. Emma Stone, of course, plays the titular role of Olive herself. And as we'll see later on, there of course are her parents, Dill and Rosemary, played by Stanley Tucci and Patricia Clarkson respectively, and there's also an adoptive younger brother of theirs, Chip, played by Bryce Clyde Jenkins. But among all that, I will say, it's just crazy how the parents, they themselves, happen to be talking much like Olive herself would. You would think that the parents would be a little opposing to this whole thing about her so-called virginity loss, when in reality it was just some sort of rumor that she started as a means to get attention. Eventually, not only reaching the acclaim that she's looking for, but also financing. Because down the line, especially when she would further fuel this thanks to a little trip to a party with a young man named Brandon, he of course does hope to get it on with her in the bedroom, but the closest he gets is basically going into a private room where a lot of people can hear him, and they essentially fake a sex scene. And the whole thing is pretty funny when you think about it. They're all just making noises, jumping on the bed like monkeys, and like I said, it's pretty elaborate just the way that they fake this whole thing. But still, what does it all lead up to? Well, it starts to become pretty catastrophic down the line, because in addition to a visit to the principal's office at school, which is among the first that it's happened so far, believe it or not, Olive also had a few visits with her guidance counselor, whom, didn't you know, is in fact a wife of one of her teachers. And while it is in fact important to note that the principal was played by Malcolm McDowell, kind of a unique way to go. And there was also Thomas Hayden Church, who plays Mr. Griffith, one of Olive's teachers. But then, of course, the wife of Mr. Griffith is the guidance counselor. And as we see throughout most of the film, Lisa Kudrow, of course, playing the wife, wouldn't you know, Mrs. Griffith, we definitely have a lot going on here. And I'm not just talking about such a unique cast with a lot of memorable faces and names. But as we do see later on, we don't just get the likes of one guy showing up, one girl showing up, but we also do get some conflicting resolutions and a number of different outrage factors, including some protests against Olive, because once it escalates to the point in which that an STI has been contracted, chlamydia, they are in fact pissed. Oh man. I mean, they're just protesting outside the school at the same time that there's a Quiznos mascot going around. And even the mascot had the nerve to call Olive, you know, that kind of word. But Olive, of course, is not the kind to back down. She, of course, hopes to get out of the situation cleanly. And as we do see throughout the rest of the film, it's her own resolution that she goes on ahead and makes. As one night, she thankfully is able to put some of the mass drama behind her with a little talk with some people that she had gone around, not just with Brandon, but also with Woodchuck Todd, Micah, and a few others along the way. Because by the end of the film, we do get ourselves Woodchuck Todd, whom I should also mention, Penn Badgley portrays him in this film. By the end of the film, we do get a surprise appearance with Olive performing a musical number on the gym floor while a game was going on. And as you probably know by now, the Woodchucks are a unique sports team that go on within the school. And even though Principal Gibbons is watching this whole thing and confronts Olive, she of course ends up storming off, claiming she had a date with old Todd. And we should definitely mention that there are plenty of live broadcasts that she goes on social media talking about various things that happen, as well as the many chapters in her life story, starting with the virginity rumor and going all the way up to how she was eventually able to find a halfway decent relationship with Todd. It actually gets to the point where Todd stands outside her house with the song "Don't You Forget About Me" playing in the background. And yeah, they not only got this song playing, but there's a ton of others as well. But probably the best thing about it, though, is that after her last broadcast goes out to everybody out there, including a pastor that she met earlier, a lot of people are watching it, by the way. A lot of faces that she had seen before, a lot of people with their own opinions about her life and all the rumors she started over the years. All this financial and critical acclaim that she had gotten because of all this mumbo jumbo she started some time ago, it all caps off with a true outing with what she considers to be her own boyfriend, Woodchuck Todd, with a lawnmower that he borrowed, as it's apparently a cool thing to drive around a lawnmower instead of a sports car. I mean, they're high schoolers. They probably couldn't afford a good vehicle like a Corvette or something. But now most of them can. It's a little jealous when you think about it, but still. I really also adore the fact that it transitions from Don't You Forget About Me by Simple Minds to a more modern version of the song. Yeah, they actually got somebody to cover the song Don't You Forget About Me. By the end of the film, we do get some resolutions thankfully made, not just with Olive's best friend Marianne, but also with the Griffiths, and even the principal himself eventually lets this whole thing go. Because Olive is not only sorry for what's happened, but everybody else she had gotten involved with, from the virginity thing to the chlamydia thing, it's all thankfully resolved in their own ways. And while not all the damage is fixed, time, hopefully, is the one thing that can heal the rest of the wound nicely. So I feel like that with that in mind, there are a lot of cast members here, a lot of unique ways to make ourselves laugh, and a lot of sex jokes and talk. It's enough to keep us enticed in a somewhat spicier fashion than what most comedy films would offer. And while this definitely was not the first of sexualizing comedy, it definitely was a unique pick for 2010. And alongside many other 2010 films I've talked about, as well as some that I will have to get around to later on, I can happily say I will gladly give this film a nice solid score for what it does. It's got a great cast, a lot of unique dialogue that goes around, lots of clever writing by many perspectives, and just a unique story format that allows for our main character to connect with others online and talk about the many chapters in her life leading up to her relationship with Todd. We'll just go on ahead and cap this film off with a scoring of 8.5 out of 10.1. So that wraps things up. But I feel like we're going to have plenty more to talk about henceforth. So make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side for more films that I will talk about in the future.